Greetings, people. I have sun rays of God in my face. But I found this just for fun while I was getting a cup of coffee. I was just looking into the Linux Foundation's financial report. And this is from 2023, that's the earliest one I could find. I don't know, it's probably kind of the same today. Why am I looking at that? Well, you will know that if you comment, like and subscribe to this video and channel. I have a little bit of a issue with a lot of Linux users and YouTubers that are basically lying to you as a consumer. I have been using Linux since the 90s. I remember the days before the Linux Foundation. I remember the day before Linux was basically owned, or well, I'm not saying owned, but controlled by big business and big money. Because it is. The days of Linux and foss in general, where the majority of the contributors was people like you and me sitting at home, getting sun rays from blinders in our face in the morning, and coding away for fun because we don't have a social life, we don't like people, we hate the world. You know, the outside is a bad game with bad graphics, so therefore we just sit there and blah, 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 and submit that to our favorite project so we can get cat pictures to work properly in our desktop environment. Those days are long gone. They are over. I'm not saying it don't happen, and there are projects out there where 99% of all the contributors' money and or code-wise are coming from idiots like us. But that's not the majority anymore. That's not the norm. That's not how foss Linux is run anymore. Heck, even the Free Software Foundation is heavily relying on a lot of money coming into them so they can pay their salaries. Because just because something is non-profit, you still have to pay locations, infrastructure, your CEOs, your CTOs, your accountants. They still need to get paid. You know, they still need money for holding seminars, certifications, and all of those things. Someone has to pay for that. And there is a saying in this world, if you don't pay for it, someone else does. So that could be either someone like me paying for you to be able to do it, or someone like these people over here. This is like the board of directors, but, you know, look at the companies. These companies are paying so we can get free shit for foss and Linux. And or they are paying developers. That's what Valve kinda is doing to some degree, is that they are paying developers to work on their issues, their projects and stuff like that. Not a hobbyist, sadly enough. That's how it used to be, but it's not how it is anymore, sadly enough. I honestly think it's sad that it's not like that anymore. So my problem here is that you see a lot of Linux YouTubers and a lot of Linux users giving the big finger to big corporations, or they think they do, and big money by running this little independent indie hobby OS called Linux, or GNU Linux, or GNOME/GNU Linux, or KDE/GNU Linux, or GNU/systemd/whatever Linux. You get the fucking mindless debate that they have over that shit in the community. You are not. You are still sucking on the teeth of capitalism. You're still sucking on the teeth of multi-million dollar companies. You're just doing it indirectly. And some people will then justify it by saying that, well, we are still sticking it to them because we are getting something for free. You're not sticking it to them because the fact that you're using it, you're driving up the user numbers, the user base, the users. So they can then justify using those products for corporate means, for proprietary means, for making money, because there's a need for it. You could end up becoming a developer, indirectly supporting these companies. You're using it, and they are paying for it. You are enabling them. You are not using them, they are kind of using you. Let's turn it around and say you're right, you're using them, you are still depending on them. So that means that you can think you're using them. What you really are is you're getting a free meal every day. And you think you're this like brilliant fucking person that are sticking it to the people that are giving you that free meal. But the second they stop giving you that free meal, you are fucked. You don't get any fucking food. You are starving to death. So you may sit there and think that, oh, I am using them and stuff. No, they are basically just being generous and giving you a free meal. There's a lot of ways you can look at it. But this is like the Linux Foundation's board of directors. The Linux Foundation do a lot of stuff. They are like really big at sponsoring, probably the biggest company sponsoring FOSS and Linux. And the people that are in charge of where the money should go with certification, webinars, seminars, pay developers, contribute to projects and stuff like that. Look at what kind of companies they work for. VMware. Is it Sony? Or Sony? I have never heard about that. AT Large, Red Hat, AT Large again, Intel, AT Large, Huawei. The company that got banned from the US for doing suspicious things with their hardware. Renes, Fujitsu, Tencent, one of the most predatory companies on earth that are trying to basically own every software company on earth. Qualcomm, Metal, Hitachi, Panasonic, Microsoft, Samsung, GitHub, Microsoft, Ericsson, Girard, NEC, Intel, Oracle, almost worse than Microsoft when it comes to corporate software. And then we have one from the Linux Foundation. So, besides one person, out of all of these people here, are controlling what's going on with the money the Linux Foundations or efforts, I would put the efforts that the Linux Foundations are doing. Only one is technically what you would call a FOSS or Linux person. All of the rest will have big business interest. Do they do something for the common folk, for the little guy? Yeah, they do. They want to look nice. It's called, PR perception. But if it was up to them 100,000%, they will only do things that benefited their companies. That's why they're there. They are there to make sure that a lot of the things the Linux Foundation do is benefiting VMware, Red Hat. Oh, well, there's two open source companies. Red Hat, Intel, Microsoft, Fujitsu, Samsung, Ericsson. They are there also to make sure that their best interests are taken care of. Mostly there to make sure that happens. Not that you get a better Proton, not that you get a better KDE. They will sponsor it because a better KDE in some instances will also help them. But they are more focused on fixing issues that Microsoft or Huawei or VMware or Sony or Tencent have with KDE than fixing what you have with KDE. That's why we don't have proper HDR. That's why we don't have a lot of consumer-friendly things in the desktop environments that Windows have and Mac OS have. Is because these people don't care about that because they don't use desktop environments in that manner. They use it for coding, they use it for telemetry, they use it for monitoring, so therefore they don't need a lot of the flashy bits that we do. Let's go a little bit further here. These are the one that pays a lot of money to the Linux Foundation that then are being tripled down to all your favorite FOSS programs. Ericsson, Fujitsu, Hitachi, Huawei, Intel, Meta, Microsoft, NEC, Oracle, Qualcomm, Red Hat, Samsung, Tencent, VMware, and then the ones that pays a little bit less. Accenture, Alibaba Cloud. Do they have a cloud now? Buy Cloud, I think it is a Baidu or something like that. Cisco, super proprietary company. Citrix, Dell, Google, Panasonic. You get the Sony, it was Sony, Renesas, Toshiba, Toyota, VBank. All of these here, maybe beside Red Hat. Well, Red Hat is also a multi-million-dollar company, but it is owned by a multi-billion-dollar company, proprietary company called IBM. All of these companies here are companies the Free Software Foundation don't like. All of these companies here are companies that FOSS people and Linux people should not really like, because these are the people you're trying to do this to when you're moving over to your little penguin. But these here are spending millions of dollars to making sure that actually work are being done on your little fat penguin. It's getting groomed, it's getting food and stuff like that. So you are indirectly reliant on these. And I have this really, really good example. Again, before the Linux Foundation, before big business took hold of Linux. A simple thing like your graphic card just fucking works now. That was not the case back in the day. It would work, but it would not work that well. Just like the sun rays in my face. It looked like an alien. It will kind of work. So when a new graphic card came out, you could wait up till a year to 2 years before that graphic card was supported to the same speed and qualities as on Windows. That means that this current graphic card, the 5000 series, would be like, yeah, you'll get like 50%, there will be a lot of bugs, you may get 80%, so there'll be a lot of bugs, but it will only be really, 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 really well supported in like about 6 months to a year, mostly a year to 2 years. If it was AMD, it would probably 6 months to a year. That's how long you have to wait for a lot. Some hardware just didn't fucking work because these, like, if it was, I can't remember was it Realtek? It was one of those graphic cards, like Intel, for example. That's up here, good old Intel. A lot of their shit didn't work, like other than their CPUs, but their NICs and stuff like that just didn't work. Just did not work. And if it worked, it was super sketchy. That was the days before all of these companies here put a lot of money into Linux. A lot of shit didn't work, or only half-assed worked. Or it took forever to do. Why? Well, because there were not companies like this to spend a lot of money that could then be diverted into those efforts. So if you wanted an Intel network card to work, you had to wait for someone that actually knew how to develop a driver for it, and had the time for it, and wanted to do it in their spare time, and wanted to give it for free or submit it upstream. I don't know about you, but the more adult you become, the more busy you become, the more you value your time where you are, can do what you want. And most people, even developers, don't want to sit and develop without, getting paid or getting something out of it. Most. Because it's a job. Even if you do it for fun, it's still kind of a job. When you are learning, like I'm doing, I love learning new coding languages. So learning a new coding language, that's fun, but I don't submit code to a project while I'm learning in that language. That will make no fucking sense. So yeah, I will do that for fun in my spare time. But most people not sit down and say, oh my god, I need to build that fucking network card driver. Oh, it's such a fucking hassle. It's going to take hours and days. Well, fuck the wives, fuck the kids, fuck the husband. Let's do it anyway. Yeah, that was why it took months to years to get anything done in Linux back in the day. But when big corporations came in and supported Linux, we went from years to days, when things starts to working out. The reason why AMD is so well supported is not because of hobby developers, it's because AMD themselves, the company, are supporting Linux. A big probably billion-dollar company, proprietary company, just like the philosophies of foss and Linux, and therefore they want to support it. But if they get into super financial strains, that's the first thing that are going away. That's another thing that people tend to forget about. Big companies are only charitable when they can afford to be charitable. The second they come into troubles and problems, all of this here is going away. This is the first thing going away. Because this is kind of like us being nice. This is like, I have so much money I can give, my fellow man on my side, I can pay for their meal. That's how you should look at this. They have so much excess money that for them it don't really fucking matter that much. And it's benefiting them in the long run. Because they're using the technologies. Serving over 1,133 open source project communities. So here you can see what are the efforts. Like out of all of the money, you can see project types is not that important. So open source, open standards, open data, and open hardware. Peer network and stuff. So it's just like what kind of types of software are they, or what kind of types of projects are they supporting the most. Open source is kind of like what we all expected. But if you look over here, what are they spending most of the money on? Cloud containers, virtualization. That's not desktop Linux. Then we have networking and Edge. That's not desktop Linux. AI, machine learning, data analytics. That's not desktop Linux. Web applications development. That's not desktop Linux. Desktop Linux, basically the kernel, so to speak, is 2%. 2% That's just the kernel. That's not KDE and all that fucking shit. 2%. All of the rest is focused on the corporate world in foss projects. Think about this. This is how important desktop Linux is for the world. This is how important it is. And you need to be aware of this. All of these companies here, they don't give a fuck about desktop Linux. At least not now. They may do in the future, but they don't do now. And this is showing it. They don't. It's on the same level as system engineering storage, then open hardware is even less, which is like, open hardware should be the primary fucking concern for everyone, because a lot of things that locked down is hardware lockdown. Safety critical systems, almost 1%. Virtual effects is 1%. Revenue and expenses, they actually lost money. But you can see here, membership and donations, almost 50%. Membership and donations are these people here. And the majority of donations comes from these people here. Event sponsorship and registrations, 19%. Training and certification, so they get paid to train and stuff like that. And then others. These others down here could probably, in my, even though donations up here, that I will say others is most likely individual non-corporation. So humans like you and me donating. And you can see here what they spent, what their expenditure was. 2%. And they gave 64% to project support. So that could be like KDE, it could be like, VLC, it could be any foss project, but mostly it would be something like, cloud containers, network, it would be probably divided as much or as equally out as this here. But they could easily, this is the last one, community tooling, 2% or 5%, So let's just say that 7%, if you take community tooling and the Linux kernel support, is how much money that are going into desktop Linux. I know it's not 100% like that and blah, 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 and what have you not, but it kind of gives you an idea. Okay, I would say it's not far from it. That you as a end user of Linux, a desktop user of Linux, you're probably only benefiting about 7 to 10% of the efforts that the Linux Foundation are putting into anything that has to do with foss and Linux. So why am I using the Linux Foundation? Well, the Linux Foundation is the sponsor of Linux. Without the Linux Foundation, Linus Torvalds and those people would not have a job. Well, they could probably nowadays get, if they moved away from the Linux Foundation, get individual sponsors like big companies and stuff like that. But before this, they was not like really getting paid much by working on Linux. Then the Linux Foundation was formed, and they was like, I think, the first sponsor of Linux ever. And it made it so the people working on the Linux kernel actually could get paid somewhat. I hope, well, there probably are more people supporting it than the Linux Foundation because, well, technically, Linus Torvalds and those people are employed by the Linux Foundation. So they don't get money from the Linux support. It must be external Linux support. I don't know. I took this out of a 160-something page document. I have a website here that I will link down below, Insight into the Linux Foundation 2023 annual report, that kind of just dumb it down for people like you and me. They explain into more detail what it is, and I may have fucked some stuff up or misremembered some of it. But it's like a 5-minute read. I will link that down below in the description page. If you want to know more about this, I was thinking about linking the whole document, but most of you guys and girls are not going to read a fucking 164-page document. A lot of it is just AI fucking speak. A lot of it is pampering and fluffiness about the company itself. Because the Linux Foundation is a company. Even if you are even if you're a non-profit company, you are still a company. People still need to getting paid. Offices still need to getting paid. Equipment still needs to getting bought. The only thing is your goal is not to save money and your goal is not to make a profit out of the endeavors, but you still need to pay for it to exist. And a lot of people, they think that non-profit organizations, nobody's getting paid and all of the money is going directly into projects and stuff like that. I would like to see a breakdown of how much money the Linux Foundation is spending on salaries, infrastructure, rent and stuff like that, because it's probably quite a lot. It's probably more than you even think it is. A lot of those like Red Cross and stuff like that have been looked into by the EU government and found out that over 60% of the money donated to them is not ending up anywhere else than the infrastructure, keeping Red Cross alive, salaries, rent, tickets, paying for things that are related to Red Cross and not, aid, basically. I think even it was like in Denmark, I think we were up at like 70 to 80% of all the money donated to Red Cross never left the Red Cross because they spent it. I don't know how that is with the Linux Foundation, but it could be nice to know. Because it is expensive to have offices. It is expensive to put on training and education. They have corporate operations here. Sorry, my bad. 6%. Well, you also have to so the 6 plus 7 plus 9, it's probably more than that. Corporate operations, is that included the salaries of the CEOs or the clerks and stuff like that? I don't know what that corporate operations is. Is it only the infrastructure? Is it only rent, or is salaries in there also? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But normally it is higher than you think. It's super higher than you think. And I would love to know this. But what this shows you, uncategorically, is that the biggest foss-supporting entity on Earth, the Linux Foundation, is run and exists because of all of the companies you hate. Not you and me. Therefore, it will have these companies' best interest at heart first before you and me. You are not using them. They are just generous enough in letting you use their technologies. They kind of have because it's open source, so, it triples into they give back to the community, and then the community can do with it what they will. But they are not making Linux the way, they're not sponsoring Linux for you. They're doing it for them over there. You are not in their thoughts much when they are allocating money to Linux and foss projects. They are, what do Qualcomm get out of it? What do Red Hat get out of it? What do Microsoft get out of it? What do Huawei get out of it? And if it happens to benefit you, there's one person we don't really see here. They may be in like the lower tier supporters. We don't see Canonical here. We don't see SUSE here. When you think about it, again, they may be in the lower tiers, like the ones that don't pay that much. But when you think about it, who is doing most for the desktop Linux? It's not Red Hat. It's SUSE and Canonical. Canonical are the ones that are making sure the Arc, or helping making sure that the Arc drivers for the Arc, Intel Arc GPUs works on the Linux. They are part of that. They help making GNOME better. Canonical do a lot for desktop Linux. The Linux Foundation is not desktop Linux focused. So you are hating Canonical for Snaps and all of those, the Microsoft of the world, but you love the Linux Foundation. You love, foss projects and stuff that are basically sponsored by the Linux Foundation, that don't have your best interest at mind at all. At least SUSE, at least Canonical do a little bit for you. Canonical do a little bit for gaming. Canonical do a little bit for the desktop user. Red Hat not so much, and that extends to Fedora to some degree. Why the fuck do you think Fedora's releases is called Workstation, IoT, Cloud, Enterprise, and so and so? It's not because they think a workstation is a desktop computer that you use for gaming. No, they know exactly what they mean. A workstation is purposely named a workstation because it's meant for work, not consumerism, not, leisure activities. It's meant for work. So the main focus of Fedora, the Fedora workstation, that's the main distribution of it, is for work. Can you game on it? Yeah. Is it a good desktop OS? Yeah. But its main purpose is work. I just find it super hypocritical and super funny the extent the Linux community just shit on Canonical while placing projects that are clearly sponsored by these people here with their fucking praises and gist and all that fucking shit, and they are way worse than Canonical is. They are directly the companies they don't like, but they don't see it. They see Canonical, they see Ubuntu. You don't see what Qualcomm, Intel, Oracle, Meta, how we actually are doing with Linux or foss. You don't directly see that. It's not in your face. Canonical and Ubuntu is in your face. That's why you're angry about it. Oh, sorry, these are not in your face. These are like, well, we are part of this organization, we're part of this foss organization, we're part of this, foss project, we sponsor this foss project. There's a lot of foss projects that also are sponsored by these people here outside of the Linux Foundation. Why do you think they do that? Is that because they want you to have better gaming capabilities under XFCE on Arch? No. It's because whoever, let's say it's Intel, they want better Intel, or they want it to be better for Intel. Or if it's Oracle, they want it to be better for Oracle. And yes, it could sometimes benefit you, but you are not the main reason. So that also means that you as a desktop user and end consumer, your needs are not getting put forward. At least Ubuntu and SUSE are somewhat doing it. But for these people here, the Linux Foundation, or if they individual, like if Oracle, VMware, Samsung, Tencent individually is supporting or sponsoring individual project, that is not because they want you to get a better experience. It's because it's benefiting them. And it's probably cheaper and more efficient than if they had to do it themselves. They are using and abusing the community more or less. This is Linux. Had you put Microsoft or Oracle, they kind of work the same way. They have a lot of their kind, a lot of other big businesses on the board of directors, a lot of business people in the board of directors, so they can influence the direction of Oracle to benefiting Intel, Meta, and stuff like that. These are corporate companies with corporate interest that are directly influencing the direction of foss and Linux. When I realized this 15 years ago, was when I started to become a super fan of Linux, becoming a super fan of Linux, because I was living in the same fucking world you are, where I thought I was sticking it to the man, I was saying fuck it to capitalism, I was doing all of these nice things. No. I was not doing any of that because they don't fucking care. And I realized that I was basically just a slave to them anyway. I was just indirectly super reliant on these companies as if I was running Apple or Windows. I was just as reliant on Microsoft and Apple and all these big multi-billion-dollar companies on Linux as I am on the Windows and Mac OS. So what the fuck is the point? Less telemetry, encroach more security, and I will still debate till I die that most knowledgeable Windows users are more secure on Windows than most Linux users are, because I don't know many Linux users that take security seriously on Linux, because they think that because they're running Linux and foss, they just automatically are secure. That's not how it works. Just because you have a steel door don't mean it locks itself. But yeah, when I realized how reliant we are and how much we need these companies to get what we want on the Linux, we are no better than the Windows users. We are just, instead of directly going up and bending over and letting these corporations just pump it into us, we have a middleman or woman called Linux and foss, and they are doing it through them. They are using and abusing us through them, and we are just as reliant on them through them. And because it's not directly in our face, it's not like the first, we don't, on Windows and Mac and stuff like that, you don't have a middleman. Here we have a middleman, so therefore it's not in our face, and we are like, oh, well, if it's not in our face, it's not the case. Just like having a smartphone nowadays where it's charging so I can't put it up in your face. We sit here and talk about openness of the code and betterness of the world and privacy collection and stuff like that. There probably a human died because of that phone. It goes for Android also. I have an Android here. I will not say that each phone is like one life. We don't talk much about that. We don't talk much about that most of the minerals, or a lot of the minerals for your EV car with your big batteries and stuff like that is made by slaves, basically. The slave trade is still alive and well because of technology. We don't talk much about that, but we bitch and moan about Microsoft and Apple taking our telemetry. We bitch and moan about that they know what fucking city we live in. That's too much, but we're okay with buying a lot of fucking technologies that basically kills and abuse people. Done by these companies, by the way. You get what I'm coming at here. See you all later. Bye-bye.